Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Conversations with Coach La. I am so excited to be here with everyone. I hope that everybody is having an amazing uh, Sunday evening. So I hope that I am finding you in good spirits, and I'm excited to be here. So I hope you're excited to be here too. Um, Tonight, we're going to be having a conversation about the power of vulnerability. And I am super excited to talk about this topic because it's something that's really, I think, uncomfortable for most of us. And a lot of us have been in a position where we felt vulnerable. So I felt like this was a great topic to sort of start off tonight. I'm not sure if everybody else is seeing my camera like moving around and acting crazy, but hopefully, let me see if I can get that to stop. Okay. So tonight we're talking about vulnerability. And some of you may have seen some of my posts that I have been putting out there about vulnerability and what vulnerability means. Hello, my lovely sister. Thank you for tuning in. I see a lot of the Facebook users, as you guys know, you're tuned into the Urban Heat 98.1 FM. And I am your therapist, your favorite around the way therapist, Coach La. And as you guys probably already have heard and know, that we are bridging our communities all around the globe. And that is one of the reasons why I love being on the Urban Heat. It's because this is truly a radio station that is for us and by us. So, all that being said, right? Tonight's conversation is about vulnerability. You can call in and have this conversation. See, I'm here by myself tonight. So tonight is a great opportunity for all of the listeners, both on YouTube, Facebook, or tuned in through the app, to call in and to talk to me about vulnerability. You can call in at 617-238-7111, and you can talk to me as well about some of your thoughts and feelings about vulnerability. Now, I put the definition up here: the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. I read that definition. I said, wow, no wonder nobody wants to be vulnerable, right? Vulnerability puts you in such a weak state, but it's also a strong state at the same time because it allows you to take a chance to show who you truly are. And you guys may remember a couple shows ago, I had a Yonda Henderson on the show, and she said, you're going to be judged either way. So you might as well be judged on your truth. And I thought that was such a powerful statement. So maybe you are one of those people who cringe at the word vulnerability. Does the mere thought of being vulnerable make you feel nauseated? And I don't know about you, I get like a knot in my stomach. I put up a poll earlier today on Conversations with Coach La, the page, and we talked about some of the things that could cause a person to be vulnerable. And one of the authors that I really like is Brene Brown, and she's done a book calling the Daring to Lead, I believe is the name of the book. Hopefully I didn't get that wrong. And in the book, she gives a lot of research that she's found about vulnerability. And some of the things that people were vulnerable about were just simply going up to a stranger, smiling at them. One of the big ones was initiating sex with your spouse, which I thought was really interesting. Why would you feel vulnerable about initiating sex with your spouse? But that was one of the big ones that a lot of people talked about. So if you have ever been vulnerable, felt vulnerable, good evening, Miss Danielle. What were you vulnerable about? What were some of the things, and you guys would love to have you share in the chat, what are some of the things that caused you to feel most vulnerable? And what did you do about it, right? So if you have had, hey, Rosie, if you have had moments of vulnerability, what was it connected to? Now, what I learned as I was studying this, because I was like, you know what? Why is this a buzzword? A lot of people are talking about you need to be vulnerable, you need to practice self-care, but what exactly does that feel like for people? What I learned is vulnerability is necessary for us to take any risk. You know, my program is called Bet on Self. For us to take any risk in life, right? There's a certain level of vulnerability. So if you decide to leave your job and start a business, you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position. One of the places that cause vulnerability is the lack of knowing if you're going to make enough money or walking away from a salary. So it's these moments that we bet on self that really cause the most vulnerability. So let me read some of my notes because I took a few. It's doing something when there's no guarantees. A willingness to invest in something and not get anything in return causes a lot of people to feel vulnerable. The other one is fear and shame. Fear, shame, and self betrayal. So, if you've often been in a situation where you're having a conversation with someone and you really want to disagree, but you choose to play it safe and not say what's really on your mind because either you're wanting to avoid the conflict, you're afraid it may end the relationship. So you shy towards, you know what, I'm just not going to say anything. Being vulnerable would be to actually speak up and say, you know what, when you said that, that hurt my feelings, or when you said that, I didn't agree with it. So vulnerability is really putting yourself out there. Let's see, I got a comment in here. I'm not sure who this is from, but they're talking about rejection. And I'm trying to get the whole comment up. So I'm going to put it on the screen. Um, so, no pun intended. So you out yourself in a position to be rejected. Absolutely. And when you're putting yourself out there, you're naked. I'm paraphrasing. No pun intended. True. I think a lot of people, that's exactly what happens, is that you feel very, very exposed, is what the definition is. So you're exposed and it's the possibility of being attacked or harmed. So in my world as a therapist, we talk about flight, fight, and fawn responses, which is our defense mechanisms. So often why we shy away from being vulnerable is because our defense mechanisms get triggered, right? So we don't want to be in a position where um, someone can have something over our heads, throw something back in our face. Those things really, really make people uncomfortable. So we talked about also the fact that when people are vulnerable, they start to want to blame someone else for whatever is happening. And what I learned about blame, it's a way to discharge pain and discomfort. So when you think about the nature of vulnerability, it's about being comfortable being uncomfortable. I don't know about y'all, but if you ever been uncomfortable, put in the chat that you understand what I'm talking about. If you've ever been uncomfortable and uneasy about something, put that's me in the chat. So I want everybody to feel very comfortable in knowing that you're not alone. That vulnerability is not an easy thing. Earlier today, I had a session with one of my clients, and she was sharing that she realized she had a real issue with being vulnerable. And it was connected to her need to fight. So in an argument, she wants the person to like stand 10 toes down and to, to argue back with her. But if you have a person who their defense mechanism is to run, soon as you start doing that, they want to take space. So being vulnerable enough to say, hey, you know, I need us to just sit and be still for a second, collect your thoughts, and start, let's circle back in a few minutes, is a way of showing your willingness to have the conversation and also be open to your partner not really liking to argue. And so we talked about vulnerability today, and that was something that she hadn't really thought about, because she was like blocking the door, and she was like, "You can't leave." And the person's like, "I need to get out of here. I need some space." And space is a trigger for a lot of people. If space is a trigger for you when you're having a situation, a person goes silent or needs space, if that's something that bothers you, put it in the chat if it bothers you when somebody doesn't want to talk. We call it stonewalling, but often people just need a moment to process their thoughts. So we numb vulnerability. We don't want to feel these feelings, right? We don't want to feel uncomfortable. So numbing them can come in a lot of different ways. It can come from substances. Some people drink, some people smoke, some people do drugs, some people gamble. But overall, a lot of times we don't want to sit in a place of discomfort. Again, if you guys are open and you want to talk about this topic, feel free to call me at 617-238 7111. We're talking about vulnerability, and you're tuned into the Urban Heat with your favorite around me therapist, Coach LA. So, what else did I learn about vulnerability that I thought was cool? We must become the change we want to see. So, if you want people to be more vulnerable with you, because I know that's a big one, right? That we want people to open up and be honest about how they feel, but are you ready to really hear someone else's thoughts? Often, at least for men, being able to express their feelings puts them in a place of not being strong. A lot of people can see when a man cries or if he expresses things are hard. Some of us, even though we want men to be very open with us, will find that as being weak. We want a strong man. So are we really making space for the men in our life to say things are hard, to be open to cry in front of us? And as a woman, some of the things we struggle with is trying to keep all the balls in the air. So asking for help. So can you actually relinquish control and ask for help? So it's like two different ways that men and women show vulnerability. If you guys can relate to that, call in and tell me about it. Again, you guys can call 617-238-7111. Shout out to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and where else are we? Oh, and on the app. How can I forget about the app, right? So call in and let me know. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt vulnerable? What did you do about it? How have you embraced your vulnerability? How have you actually used your voice and spoke your truth? And what were some of the pros and cons of doing so? So I think one of the things for me was being able to even do this show. I'm gonna be vulnerable with y'all right now. Is getting out here on the radio and exposing myself to talk about my strengths, my weaknesses, or even making a mistake on camera, right? I don't know about you, but I don't really like being on camera. This is not something that makes me very comfortable. So I'm being vulnerable and just getting on a camera and letting people watch me and listen to me. Whereas in my office with a client, I feel very safe. It's just me and them. Right now, I don't know, upteen number eyes. I can see some of them. I got ears listening to me. So this can make me feel very vulnerable that, am I saying the right thing? Am I presenting myself in a professional way? Am I making sense? And especially when I don't have a guest, right? And I come on here by myself and I'm just talking at the screen and looking at the comments and hoping that people are listening to me. It makes me feel really, really vulnerable. So what were some of the obstacles in embracing your own vulnerability? When did you realize that you needed to do it? So going on a job interview can make a lot of people very vulnerable, right? You're literally selling yourself, your skills, why they should hire you. That's a huge place of vulnerability for a lot of people. Going on a date, your first date, after you've sat and talked on the phone and different things, but now you're like on a date, that can feel very vulnerable. So there's a difference between vulnerability and manipulation. So someone asked me that. So what's the difference? So partly vulnerability is authentic. You're not trying, you're not overcompensating. You're taking a risk, but you're being your true self. Manipulation is when your intentions are to try to get someone to like you or to sway them in a particular way. That's when it gets swings towards being manipulative. So me telling you guys that right now, it's like, I'm not really trying to get you to like me, but I am trying to get a point across, right? So what's your intentions behind what you're sharing? So one of the things that comes up a lot for, I would say, clinicians and therapists is self-disclosure. How much about yourself do you disclose to a client? Is it okay to cry with a client? Is it okay to tell a client about your past, challenges? And when do you share that? So again, it's all about intention. Are you sharing it because you really feel like it's something that's going to help the client? Or are you sharing it because your own insecurities have been triggered in some way and you're trying to make your own self comfortable about what's being shared? So all of it goes back to being really self-aware. Self-awareness is probably one of the biggest things that we need to be privy to, is what's going on with ourselves. Often the world is such a vulnerable and judgmental place. If you agree that the world is a vulnerable and judgmental place, put you agree in the chat, because I think the world is a very vulnerable and judgmental place. And I think part of why we don't share and why we have a struggle with being vulnerable is because we don't want to be judged, right? We don't want people to use things against us, and that can make you feel really scary, right? So if I share this thing about myself, are they going to tell other people? If I share this about myself, are they going to use it against me? And they're going to throw it in my face later? So we often are so worried about other people's opinions of us, and that gets in the way of us actually being brave enough to just be who we are. So I had wrote this down, and I thought it was such a powerful statement. And I'm it was basically, I'm gonna have to paraphrase it. Are you brave enough to be who you are in lieu of who you're supposed to be? Are you brave enough to be who you are in lieu of who you're supposed to be? So when people have told us from when we're children who we are, why we do what we do, somebody came up and said, you know what, you're so shy, or, you know, oh, you're so stubborn, you're difficult. People have given us certain narratives about ourselves. And if you hear it enough, you start to believe it. So then we become adults and we have to sometimes question, is this who I really am? Or is this who people told me I was? I'm going to say that again. Is this who I really am? Or is this who people told me I was? So that can be a really tough place to be, and that actually brings a lot of people to therapy, is because they get to this point in their life where they're like, I know this is how I was raised, I know this is what I was taught, but I'm starting to really question this, or I've always questioned this, and I want to change the narrative. So you might have heard about breaking generational curses, or, you know, breaking unhealthy behaviors and things of that nature, toxic behavior. All of those things sometimes are tied to how we were raised in our upbringing, and people want to break free of those things. So again, you guys can call in. Don't be afraid. It's just me and you tonight. 617-238-7111. You're tuned into the Urban Heat 98.1 FM, and this is Conversations with Coach Law, and you're listening to your favorite around the way therapist that they also call Coach Law. Well, you guys can see I'm in a good mood tonight. Although this is a sensitive topic, I think it's a much needed topic. So, vulnerability. So the key to true vulnerability is that you're willing to accept the consequences no matter what. Now, what do I mean by that? So often what it is, we don't want to put ourselves in a place of discomfort or being uncomfortable because we're afraid of the consequence. So say you tell a dirty joke at work, right? You thought the joke was funny, so you told it. And then social cues tell you that everybody didn't really get the joke, or they didn't really like the joke. And the consequence may be that someone says, hey, I didn't really find that joke funny. You may have to say, okay, you know, I respect that. I won't tell that joke again. I didn't mean to offend you. Right. So often we don't want to put ourselves up out there. We don't want to share our opinions. We don't want to discuss certain things. I think a lot of social ills, if people were to talk about these things and show that maybe we could actually make some changes, but often we hide in the dark. And when we hide in the dark, I just feel like um, you don't get reality tested. And so in therapy, we talk about reality testing. If you keep everything inside, it eventually comes out somewhere else. So often we need to bring things out that we're thinking with someone we trust, of course, and explore it and analyze it and examine it. And so that's a lot of times why people come to therapy as well. So we we've all had to dig deep and find the strength to move through rough moments and ask for help when we need it, and celebrate victories in the face of uncertainty. All of that is an example of being vulnerable. Just simply saying, you know what? It's been a tough year. I mean, I think most people coming off of the pandemic and even now stepping back into day to day living have had some challenges. Being in the house for 2 years and now all of a sudden we have all these different events, and it's like, okay, well, what happened? COVID didn't go away, but a lot of people are now having to come out and sort of deal with the fact of, okay, people are taking off masks. Some people are still very uncomfortable with um, the vaccinations and things of that nature. People are traveling. So a lot of people are having a lot of anxiety and are constantly feeling very vulnerable as they try to reinsert themselves into the day-to-day world outside of their house. One of the big things coming up for a lot of my clients is a lot of companies are now saying you have to come back to work. You have to come back in the office. A lot of people are not okay with that. It's very uncomfortable being that we've been in a virtual reality for so long, and to have the pressure to come back into the office. A lot of people are very vulnerable, feeling very uncomfortable with that. So chances are you've probably been moved by someone who's opened up about their struggles this year. Think about somebody who's maybe shared something very vulnerable with you. A lot of people have lost loved ones and just going through some really tough times during this pandemic. How did that make you feel? And how did you respond to it? So there's a couple ways that we show empathy versus sympathy. So empathy is really about connection and identifying with a feeling in a situation that another person has experienced. So that might sound like, wow, I really understand where you're coming from. I've felt that way too. Um, yeah, that was really difficult. I can recall a time in my life where I struggled with that same thing. Versus, wow, that sounds like that's really hard for you, right? So you're not really connecting with the person and letting them know that you've experienced it as well. You are just telling them, hey, that sounds like that you're having a hard time. I'm sorry to hear that. So you're showing sympathy. So sympathy and empathy are two different things. So often we need to show empathy, right? And connect with each other. And that's also another form of vulnerability, right? Is being able to actually acknowledge, affirm, and normalize another person's experience. Um, so let's see. We got a couple of comments. Put some of these comments. Trust and vulnerability go hand in hand. Definitely agree with that. And then, are you brave enough to be who you really are? I think that's a really good point. And I think often that's a big question a lot of people struggle with. If you've ever been around anybody that you felt like they were fake, or they were one way, one place, one way, another place, you really wasn't quite sure of who they are. You ever experienced that? Have you experienced that? Say, I've experienced that in the chat, where you're not really sure who this person really is, because they kind of switch in different settings. And there is a certain statement or a certain truth to, you do need to be aware of your surroundings and be self-aware, but it shouldn't be such a drastic change from who you are as a person in every setting. So like, I'm usually loud, I'm very talkative, I'm very friendly, happy-go-lucky person. That's my personality. That doesn't change, but I may not share personal things in a certain setting, or I might not yell because I'm sitting inside of a theater, or I'm watching a movie, or I'm at a speech, a presentation. So I'm not going to be loud in that setting, but my personality won't change. I'm just switching for the setting to be appropriate in that setting, but my personality is still the same. Some people are very different in every setting. And that can be sort of like, well, who are you really? And I think a lot of that stems from them not being comfortable being vulnerable. So if you know what I'm talking about, definitely throw it in the chat. Again, you can call in 617-238-7111. We're talking about vulnerability tonight on Conversations with Coach Law on the Urban Heat 98.1 FM. And if you haven't done so already, you can also go download the app so that you can play us anywhere from any place at any time. Share this live with a few friends or two that also struggle with vulnerability, because I think it's a great talking point. It's just to bring some of these things up in day-to-day conversation and talk to your friends and your family about what does it feel like to be vulnerable. You know, how do you handle that? Because I think a lot of us miss that opportunity to sort of learn how to regulate our emotions. And a lot of it happened in childhood. So a lot of our parents didn't really do a great job with regulating emotions. They may not have cried in front of you. They may not have shown you that they were struggling. So if you never really seen any of those things, you too sort of learn not to be able to show those emotions. And negative emotions are part of life. You will get disappointed. People will drop the ball. Human beings make mistakes. We tend to want to be perfect, right? And this level of perfection that we're all trying to go after, I think is causing a lot of our mental health issues. You know, we have imposter syndrome. We got perfectionism. We are comparing ourselves on social media. And all this stuff is making people feel like they're not good enough and their lives are not good enough. And honestly, it's just not true, right? A lot of people are showing you their highlights. They're not showing you their struggles because they don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want you to see that they struggle. They don't want you to see that they have a hard time. As a therapist, there's a lot of pressure for me to have it together, right? There's a lot of pressure that if I come on here and say, you know what, I had a rough day, I cut somebody out, they're gonna be like, well, how can you help me? Well, I'm still human, right? I still experience all of the same emotions that everyone else experiences. I just have tools and I have learned how to practice self-regulation, and I have a better grip on reality sometimes than some people. I have a high, I say, bandwidth for grace and empathy than maybe others have. I try not to be judgmental, right? So the average person, that's not what they're doing. They're not thinking from that lens. If I truly believe if most of us were to focus on ourselves and focus on the things we needed to work on within ourselves, we wouldn't be judgmental, right? We wouldn't have time to judge other people because we would know, hey, I got all this stuff over here to work on and I'm not perfect, right? There's things that my pastor once said, if your life was put on the big screen for everyone to see, everything you thought, everything you did, all your deepest, darkest secrets, would you still be able to judge somebody else? And I said, that was a profound question to ask, right? If you were to have all of your stuff, everything that you're going to take to your grave on the big screen for people to see, would you still judge folks? And I think most of us would say no, we wouldn't. I think most of us would be able to therefore probably give more empathy to people because we would see that we're all the same and everybody's just doing the best that they can with what they've been taught. So I just think that we need to realize that the world is a vulnerable place. And being that it is a vulnerable place and a judgmental place, how do we become the change we want to see in the world? Because we cannot control anyone but ourselves, right? You only can control you and your reactions to other people. You can't change them, you can only change you. So how do we do that? So some of the things that I've learned is to practice self-awareness. I probably said that so many times tonight. We have to be brave enough to have these vulnerable conversations, right? Because they matter. They matter, and they create what I would call a mental domino effect, helping us to destigmatize mental health and mental illness. A lot of people are suffering. Last month was Suicide Awareness Month. And I really was thinking a lot about why people feel like they don't want to engage in this world anymore. And I think the lack of vulnerability and the judgment is one of the reasons that really cause a lot of people to be sad. I think comparing your life to other people's lives creates sadness and depression for people. There was something I read and it said, in the absence of love and belonging, there's suffering. And as much as folks want to maybe push back on this, I think all of us want to be accepted. We all want to be loved, and we all want to feel like we belong. If you disagree with me, put you disagree with me in the chat. But if you agree with me, say, Coach La, I agree. Most of us want to feel love, connection, and belonging. If you believe that, put that I believe that. Let me know you're out there listening. I got a lot of comments. I can't see who you are because I'm using StreamYard, and that makes me so frustrated because I can't see y'all's names. I want to see names. So if you see this and I can't see your name, just put your name or say, hey, if I know who you are. I don't know. I see just a lot of Facebook users. And that's because I'm using StreamYard. If you like what I'm saying, give me some hearts, give me some love. Let me know you're out there. I see people out there. I see that y'all are watching. But if you believe that, let me know. Do you believe that? Do you believe that in the absence of love and belonging that there's suffering? And I think a lot of us, what we want so much is connection. And there was another thing I read that also stood out to me, and it said, just because we're communicating doesn't mean that that there's a connection. I said, whoa. So communication is not connection? Have you ever had a meaningless conversation? That was a tongue twister for me. A meaningless conversation. So you're just talking about nothing. So simply communicating is not enough to create a connection. I believe being vulnerable is what creates a connection. I believe empathy is what creates a connection, right? I believe being able to actually connect to the human experience is what creates connection. And I think that's part of what's wrong with our world, is that we're not connecting enough. Social media has created a way for people to sort of say whatever with no consequence, right? It has allowed us to sort of just sit and watch from a distance. Half of us don't even like or comment on what we see on social media. Something that also is strange to me, and if you've noticed this, is that a lot of us watch a lot of celebrities and entertainers, right? And I go look at some of these celebrities and entertainers pages, and it's like thousands and thousands of likes and comments, right? You just get lost in the sauce. But you'll stroll up and down your own friends and family's social media page, and you won't like it. You won't comment, right? You won't say anything. And you know why I think that is? Because people don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to seem like we're sweating people, we're gassing them up. We don't even want them to know we're looking, right? We think it's weird. A lot of people think it's weird that family and friends watch them on social media, but that's precisely why we're all on there. You're posting because you want attention, but no one wants to admit that they want attention. So why do you put stuff on social media? Why do you post anything if you don't want to be seen, right? We're all watching each other all the time, but we're not connecting. We're not connecting. What is it to actually like somebody's post if you liked it, or to comment under it? Do you know some people are so connected to social media that they watch the likes and the comments, and that can ruin a person's day? They'll go see that you liked and commented on somebody else, and they'll be like, they never like or comment on anything I post. It is really true. So ask yourself, why do we do that? Why do we have people that we are following and friended on social media, but we don't engage with them at all? We don't like anything. We don't comment. We don't share. And I still say it's because we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want anyone to think we're sweating or watching them. We rather watch them in secret. But on an entertainer's page, there's so many comments and so many people that you're not going to be visible. No one's going to notice whether or not you commented or not. Isn't that interesting? Except for those of us that are friends with you, we see that you commented and liked it. So I've actually done that experiment, right? I've seen Oprah post something, and Oprah will have all of these likes and comments. I'll literally copy and paste the same thing Oprah posted, and I'll have none. or maybe a few. Why is that? Is it not good content anymore? Or is it just that people mindlessly will just like Oprah's comments? I still say I think it's about vulnerability. People don't want me to know, or don't want to gas me, or don't want to sweat me. I mean, there's a lot of things that we think, core beliefs of what we think that looks like if we do it with somebody we know personally. And I want to challenge everybody to actually like, comment, share. It takes nothing to do that, especially for your friends who have businesses and things of that nature, is to actually do that. Be more vulnerable in social media, to actually engage, comment. I challenge you to do that, because a lot of people do follow that. Hey, Jen. Um, I believe that. Okay. Oh, thank you, Jim, for tuning in. Thank you for putting your name in there too. Hi, Tamara. Hi, Vanessa. What's up to my sister Shamina and all you Facebook users? Thank you, Rosie and Daniela. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm glad y'all decided to hang out with me, and thank you for the love. I like attention, so the hearts make me happy, y'all. So please, please, please give me more hearts, more comments, because I ain't gonna sit here and act like I'm gonna be vulnerable in this moment and say that stuff matters to me, right? Other than that, I'm sitting here just talking to the screen, which is weird. It's so weird to do that, right? I love having a guest. Y'all know I love having a guest, but I didn't want to cancel the show because I didn't have a guest tonight. So back to this vulnerability thing. How can we be more vulnerable and be okay with it? So I mentioned Brene Brown a few times. I really, really love her. I'm going to put her talk. She did a TED talk on the power of vulnerability. And so Brene Brown has a book called Daring Greatly. And it's one of the top 10 business books of actually 2012. She spent 12 years studying vulnerability, courage, and worthlessness and shame. And what I thought was really interesting is that she broke down the difference between shame and guilt. And I had never really heard it broken down like this, which I also think that's tied to vulnerability, right? So shame versus guilt. Anybody know what that is? If you've experienced shame, put in the chat that you've experienced shame. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm glad. Hi, Ayana. Thank you for joining in. If you've experienced shame, put in the chat, I've experienced shame, right? And if you experienced guilt, if you experienced them both, right? So one of the things I found interesting is that shame is an internal thing, right? Shame is I'm a bad person, right? I'm a bad person. I'm never gonna amount to anything. It's an internal core belief, versus guilt is external. It's like I did something bad. I shouldn't have done that. It's a behavior. And what I think was really important about the research was guilt was actually a better thing to have, because it actually gave hope of change. When it's something that's shame, people really have started to embody that's who they are as a person. I'll say that again. Shame is when you start to embody that you are this bad person, right? And your core belief about yourself is a negative core belief that you're not worthy. So you have a lot of shame around that. Guilt is you've done something and you feel remorse about it, right? And there's an opportunity for you to change or correct it or do something different in the future. It doesn't mean that that's who you are as a person. So I thought that was a really interesting way to explain shame and guilt. And I also, want to touch on accountability. So another piece of vulnerability is being able to take accountability for your actions, and to take accountability when you're wrong, to take accountability for having an authentic apology. And you probably heard this before, but the best apology is change behavior. Most times people will apologize because they have an intent that they want something from you, right? An authentic apology is you actually say, you know what? I realized that when I said that truly hurt your feelings. And I feel really badly about that. I now realize that I need to be more mindful of what I say when I'm angry. What I'm going to do in the future is take a couple of breaths and be more conscientious about what I say when I'm upset, even if that means I need to take some space, because I truly regret saying those things out of anger because I didn't mean that. And I realized that it hurt your feelings. And giving the other person the opportunity to take all of that in and decide whether or not they want to accept your apology or not. And sometimes it might take a person a while to do that. And then they may slowly start to come back around you. But they're also now going to be monitoring whether or not your apology was actually sincere, right? And so a lot of people are not able to take the consequence of their behavior. I had put up a post on my Facebook page about wanting to attract a partner who would ultimately say, you know what? Nah, I'm not even going to do that to her, right? And a lot of people liked the post. And it was speaking to being mistreated, right? It was speaking to character, speaking to vulnerability. And one of the things people struggle with is being able to hold themselves accountable to their own insecurities and their own negative thinking. Often will project that stuff onto other people. And being vulnerable often is calling people out. Because when you call people out, what do you think they do? They normally get defensive. How many people do you know go, oh, yep, you're right. I absolutely did that. How many people know that when you call somebody out, they get defensive? Am I talking truth or am I talking truth? If y'all know what I'm talking about, most times when you call somebody out, how many times do they say, yep, I did that. You right? If you've experienced that people take accountability, I would love to hear you call in and give me an example of somebody that you called them out and they immediately took accountability for their actions. Human behavior, and this is not because of anything else, is to get defensive and to want to defend ourselves. And it's just what it is, right? And so I don't even take it personal when people get defensive anymore, because I know what I'm talking about. If you know what I'm talking about, I told y'all I like hearts, y'all. So give me some hearts. Give me some truth. Yep, you talk about it, sis. You know, I need all of that energy y'all be giving. Y'all know how y'all get. Y'all be giving that energy. So give me that energy. I'll be feeling the energy. Thank you, Vanessa, for telling me the truth. I appreciate it. Appreciate the agreement. I do. So I'm not just sitting here talking into the mic, talking crazy. If I'm talking crazy, y'all tell me that too. If you don't agree with what I'm talking about and you think I'm talking crazy, I can accept that too. But oh, wow, your daughter did that the other day and she's 12. It blew my mind. That's a beautiful thing. I will have to say that's a testament to your parenting, right? If your child has learned to take accountability, I'm going to say that's because of your parenting. And that allows your child to know that it's safe to make a mistake. They also call that a growth mindset, right? I'm dropping a whole lot of nuggets tonight. They call that a growth mindset. When you are allowing your child to be curious and make mistakes, it's actually a really good thing, y'all. It's a really good thing. We need to move away from perfection, right? None of us are perfect. It's not possible to be perfect. You can strive, right, to make good choices, but the pure essence of being a human being is to embrace that you are human and therefore you make mistakes and you can choose to see them as lessons. I'll say that again. As a human, to embrace mistakes and say to yourself, I am human, therefore I make mistakes and I can choose to see them as lessons. The more you can do that, the more risk you will take. The whole essence of my Bet on Self program is to get people to be more comfortable with stepping out on their own, stepping out on their own beliefs, stepping out to call people out, betting on that it's going to be okay. And maybe, just maybe some of these people are not even meant to be in your life anymore. The people that you're so afraid to call out on their behavior, maybe it's time for them to go, right? I know that's hard to accept, but sometimes certain people need to go. Sometimes their expiration date has been passed and you're just holding on to them. You know, you don't want to throw them away. You don't want to end it, but connections are just that. You know, there's people that are going to be in your life for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And even being vulnerable enough to say that serenity prayer, I don't want to mess it up, but God grant me the serenity to be able to have the discernment. I'm messing this all up, y'all, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Discernment to know the difference, right? So to accept the things that I cannot change, right? And to change the things that I can, and the wisdom and the discernment to know the difference. That's the pure essence of being human, right? Nothing is going to always go your way. I know nobody wants to really embrace that, but people are going to be human. The pure essence of human beings is that we make mistakes. We always are going to make mistakes. I gave this analogy, talked to one of my clients about, think about a small child before they learn to walk, because I think often the vulnerability also is part of growth, right? You don't grow inside your comfort zone. So let me break this down. When you think about a small child and they're learning to walk, they stumble, right? They start off crawling, right? And they start pulling themselves up on things, right? To get their stability. And they do all, they hold on to things, they hold on to you. And then they might sit back on the ground and crawl, and then they may pull themselves back up, right? And then they start trying to take some steps, but they wobble, they're off balance, right? They may fall down a couple times and get back up and try it again. And people encourage them and say, come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, you got it. Come on, take the steps, right? No one ever tells a child, stop trying to walk. You fell down. You're never going to get it. You should have been walking already, right? But we tend to forget as we go into adulthood, development doesn't stop. My father told me, he said, as a parent, if you know what I'm talking about, a lot of parents said, once you turn 18, you got to move out. Who knows about that? You know what I'm talking about? Put in there. I definitely know about that. My mama was like, 18, my job is over. You need to move out. If you experience that, I definitely experienced that. I'm being vulnerable again, telling y'all how my mama wanted to kick me out. I actually got kicked out at least 2 or 3 times throughout my life before I just said, you know what, I ain't coming back no more. Anyways, that's a story for another day. So, but no one tells a child to stop trying to walk. And so my father said, parenting actually really begins in adulthood, because now your child has to go out into the world and try all of the stuff you taught them. Now they got to engage with other people. This is when they're really going to bump their heads to the white meat. This is when they really going to go through some stuff. And this is where they really need a parent. You need a guide. And often people are coming to therapy because they don't have that. They don't have anyone to be a sounding board about what they're experiencing in their adult life. And they're going back and they're looking at what they were taught, and it's not helping them navigate the world. Or what they were taught is causing them a lot of havoc in the world. And they need to learn and unlearn and learn some new coping strategies. It's one of the most vulnerable places for you to be in as an adult, to realize, damn, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, shoot. They told me if I went to college and did this and got a good job, found me a husband, had me some kids, bought me a house, made decent money, I was going to be happy. How many of y'all know what I'm talking about? And then some of us got that and we're still not happy. And a lot of us feel like because we don't have that, we're not happy, right? It's like we were also sold a dream that didn't manifest. Back in the day, we would call that a pipe dream. Y'all know about a pipe dream? I know you got to grow up in the crack epidemic to know what I'm talking about. But again, I'm being vulnerable. I grew up in the crack epidemic. So, hey, what can I say? So we had a lot of pipe dreams, right? We had a lot of, I would call hallucinations, and we were sold things that really wasn't necessarily reality. So now here we are as adults, and life ain't really popping like we thought it was going to pop in. You know that statement, I can't adult today, or man, I used to want to be an adult and now I'm here. If y'all know what I'm talking about, please let me know y'all know what I'm talking about. Throw some hearts up there, throw some comments if this is making sense to you. At the end of the day, all of these things that I'm talking about are connected to vulnerability. They're connected to your ability to be your authentic self and connect with other people, especially those of you that are in relationships. A lot of people in couples therapy, because a lot of this stuff they haven't unpacked. And then they get in a relationship and they get hella triggered and all of this stuff is going on and they can't even talk to the person that they're supposed to feel safe with. I told you one of the biggest things was initiating sex with a partner. How can you be married and be uncomfortable initiating sex with the person that you married? How? Right? And it goes back to a lot of vulnerability and insecurity issues that a lot of people just don't unpack before they get in a relationship. Lo and behold, that's why I created the Bet on Self program. That is one of the things I think that led me into becoming a therapist, is that I truly believe people just need someone to listen and understand their perspectives. So, y'all feeling what I'm putting down? Y'all picking up what I'm putting down? If y'all understanding what I'm talking about and this is making sense to you, please, please let me know. I still have a few minutes if you want to call in and tell me your thoughts on tonight's show. If there's any of this that made sense to you, please put in the chat. This makes sense. I hope this is helpful. I hope some people are gaining some things from this conversation on the importance of vulnerability. So when I think about what I want to leave with you guys tonight is, what are you willing to give up to be your true self? And for some of you, that might be, insecurities. It may be self-doubt. It could be some trauma. It could be some pain. And if those things are holding you back, what are you going to do about it? TD Jakes, I posted a sermon by TD Jakes. It was him expressing that God has given us all a talent, be it to paint, be it to write, be it to cook, be it to clean, right? Be it to fix cars. Everybody has a gift. What are you doing with your gift? Why are you not using your gift? And are you not using your gift because you're afraid, right? You have this passion, but you're scared that, if I do this, people are going to think it's crazy. Are people around you telling you it's ridiculous? So you're not stepping out to do what you really want to do. Is it money, where you're afraid you'll never make money doing it? What's holding you back? What's holding you back? What's making you feel that you can't take this moment to bet on yourself? And I bet you when you pull back the layers, it has a lot to do with vulnerability and judgment, right? And I think it goes both ways for men and women. So I invite everyone to really think about what you need. What do you need, right? What do you need to feel connected? And what's missing that's causing you not to feel like you have love and belonging? Because in the absence of love and belonging is suffering. And if you're suffering and you're suffering in silence, I invite you to be vulnerable enough to talk about it. To express your thoughts, to journal, to hire a therapist, to join my course, to talk to a pastor, to talk to your spouse, to talk to someone you trust about what you're experiencing and what's really going on. Somebody told me that, I never asked them if they wanted to cry, because they always ask me if I want to cry. And he made a point to say, asking him would give him the safety and give him the permission that it was okay to cry. So I want you to think about that too. How often are you crying? Do you need to cry? Maybe that's one of the big things that a lot of people are afraid to cry. And that's one of the most vulnerable places to be, is to cry, to have a big, ugly cry. And some of y'all need to cry, right? And some of y'all need probably to stop crying so much, right? And stop blaming other people. But some people need to cry. You need a good cry, or to pray and cry at the same time. I like doing them at the same time. But I invite you to think about that. What is something that makes you vulnerable that you're not doing? And I encourage you this week to do it. Be that to tell somebody that you love them. Be that to ask for a hug. Be that to go and try a new activity by yourself. Maybe that's to go eat by yourself, go to a movie by yourself. I invite you to embrace and think about things that are holding you back, because those are the things that are probably going to make you feel vulnerable. Thank you for telling me it was a great topic. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate all the Facebook users. I appreciate all of the people on YouTube. And everyone who has joined Conversations with Coach Law, the Facebook group, I think I'm officially at 600 members. Thank all 600 of you. Um, if you haven't done so already, please share this live with someone who needs to hear a message about vulnerability. If you know anyone who is looking for a therapist or a life coach, I am currently still accepting more people into my Bet on Self course that's now enrolling. You can actually set up a time to do an individual consultation with me and talk about your goals to see if it's a good fit. You can see it on the screen. Um, and as you know, I'm here every Sunday at 10 p.m. And yes, thank you. Thank you for telling me congratulations. I love the group. I think right now I have 6 seats left. I'm only going to be working with 10 people. The group starts on October 22nd. So there's 6 seats left. If you're interested and you just want to have a chat on whether or not it's a good fit for you, hey, bestie, thanks for tuning in. If it's a good fit for you, go ahead and schedule a time for us to chat. The chat is at no cost to you. We're just going to talk about your goals and what you want to accomplish. And if you feel like I'm a good fit, you feel like the program's a good fit, we'll move forward. If not, it's a conversation, and you lose nothing for having a conversation. So if it's something you're interested in, I would suggest you just make a book a time to just talk with me, and you'll get something out of it. It'll be a one-on-one, and you can just share your goals, and I can motivate and encourage you. So utilize that. That's a 15-minute conversation at no cost that we can just chop it up about what you are thinking about you want to do. But again, there's 6 seats left in the group. It starts on October 22nd. You can go to my website, www.iamcoachla.com. If you want to know more about me, you want to see what people have said about me, go ahead. I'm currently full for individual sessions. So the only way you can work with me right now is to join my group. And like I said, I got space for 6 more clients. So feel free to sign up for the group. Love to have you in the group. It's going to be a great community. Every week, you're going to be held accountable. You get homework, and you still get a one-on-one session with me every week as well. So it's an 8-week commitment. So yes, this has been a great time. I hope you guys are enjoying tomorrow. I want to make sure you guys tune in to the Morning Cafe with the Dr. Love segment. It's always a good time. That is coming on from 8 to 10, 8 a.m. to 10, 8 to 10 a.m. Jesus, help me. So that's tomorrow morning. And after that, we have the Midday Classics and Sandra Jackson. Sandra D will be doing the Ladies First show. So make sure you tune in for that. And for all of you that missed the live, share the live with a friend. And then it also is uploaded into a podcast format. So if you missed any of the past episodes, feel free to go in to any of your major podcast platforms and you can listen to the past episodes. So I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight to Conversations with Coach LA. See y'all next week, Sunday, 10 p.m. right here on the Urban Heat, where we're bridging communities all around the globe and all over Boston. Make sure you go ahead and download that app, the Heat 98.1 FM. See you guys all next Sunday.